Hey everybody, welcome to the Cranial Catacombs. Let's take a little tour. I wanted to talk about 5G satellites and a theory that I have on to why they're putting so many in low Earth orbit so fast. So they're wanting to launch, tens of thousands of these into low Earth orbit for an indefinite amount of time. And we all know the implications behind that is that the frequencies can be damaging to the body. It could be weaponized. We've heard of the conspiracy Project Bluebeam, in which they're attempting to project a messiah to create a new age religion and start a new world order via holographic imagery projected from these satellites. And if you look, they're creating almost a structure around the Earth in place of the ionosphere of satellites. So imagine just tens of thousands of these just circling in about this ratio of height. They're also putting artificial ionospheric mirrors into the ionosphere to help reflect radio wave frequencies. So what the ionosphere does is it reflects low frequencies, it skips them back to Earth, and it allows long range or high frequencies to travel through. Vice versa, on the other way, it lets long frequencies through from space and stops short frequencies. It also harvests UV radiations, and it charges the electron particles and it ionizes them, which is why it's called the ionosphere. There's another reason why it's called the ionosphere, and I'll get into that here in a second. So we look at that, and here's the ionosphere. So they've put in all these things in here. And just looking at this picture in itself, you can see why flat earthers would get stuck here. Because if you got low level of consciousness, you're going to skip off of this and think, well, that's as far as it goes. Which is exactly why they're putting the satellites there, in my theory. Because they know that the ionosphere is set to either completely collapse or dissipate or have an extreme amount of perforation. And they know that. So they're creating an artificial ionosphere before that happens so that they can keep the low frequency vibrations on Earth. And what they'll do, in place of the ionosphere, instead of the ionospheres collecting the sun's radiation and using it to charge the electron particles, they're going to use the sun's power to charge their satellites and then project a sub-reality on Earth for an indefinite amount of time from the satellites through the technology. What would happen if the ionosphere would disappear? Well, if we look here, again, I'm not a flat earther, but this is a good example. This is why it's called the ionosphere, because it's the veil of the eye. That's the veil. All right. So, and this is also, which I'm going to get into, the shape of the Vesica Pisces. Okay, so on the other side, imagine this isn't the floodwaters is an allegory or a metaphor for the unconscious or subconscious mind. It's the emotions, it's the floodwaters. And so they know that if this veil disappears, we'll be exposed to cosmic consciousness, and they don't want that, because the more people who wake up to this idea, the more powerful we become as a species, and they have harder time controlling that. And so this is the age of Vesica Pisces, which is why I was showing you this one, because we're in here right now. And so there's water on the outside, but this is also symbolic, as imagine we are one circle and a parasitic entity is another circle, and they have kind of fused into us. What's going to happen is either they're going to fuse to us completely, and that's the negative one world, or we're going to separate, and there's going to be a massive hole right here in the ionosphere. Imagine that's the ionosphere, or it's the ionosphere is like the veil between us and space. So if that's perforated like that, space, cosmic consciousness is going to rush in. This is important because we're moving from the age of Pisces, which is the Vesica Pisces, to the age of Aquarius, which is the water bearer. No question there. This is the waters flooding in. Imagine this, the whole of the vase as the Vesica Pisces. It's the floodgates from the portal. And so we're moving into that. What does this have to do with anything? Here's another visual example. So we see the first heaven. This is the ionosphere. When this disappears, we'll be exposed to the second heaven, the cosmos. People who have broken through this by raising their frequency have already experienced these higher realms. But if you have low frequency, you get stuck here, which is why what's important about this, because the waters are about to pour in, because this filament's about to break. And a good example here, where have we seen this? Well, maybe not have seen it. I don't watch The Simpsons. I found this. Check this out. No coincidence.
The pitcher, steroid Santa Claus, kicks and deals. It's a long fly ball going back, and the ball shatters the sky, bringing the ocean itself down into the stadium. Oh, Simpson just broke this dream's reality wide open.
As above, so below, folks. As above, so below. So we got the waters below us and the waters above. This is why gravity is buoyancy. So here, we'll get into this. Gravity is buoyancy. They know this. The fluid, the medium, God, source, is a fluid dynamic with characteristics such as water, which is why galaxies spin, all of this stuff. If gravity was real, it would have the same effect no matter what it's applied to. But density highly changes how gravity affects anything. The more dense an object is, the faster it's going to fall. The lighter an object, the slower it's going to fall. This is how, a good example is like a submarine. When you want to sink into the ocean and, hypothetically float through the sky of the ocean, you use a submarine. When you need to do that in the sky, you get a Zeppelin. One's more buoyant and one's less buoyant. The thing is, gravity is not real. What it is buoyancy, which is why they put heavy metals into the body, because they know that this event is destined to happen. And if they can't get their satellites, their artificial one in time, they know that they can make you so dense that when the waters, the floodgates come in, the cosmic consciousness, and it's time for our vibration to raise, people will not be able to. It'll be like having anchors on your feet. Your body will be too dense to go to higher realms, and you'll be stuck at the bottom of the ocean. This is the dark night of the soul for a lot of people who have a spiritual awakening. You'll see when you break out of, the veil, you're now in the water at the bottom of an ocean, and you meet your dragon, the Leviathan. You meet your darkest parts of yourself. And then you start to slowly keep raising. You can get stuck there and drown, feel like you're drowning. But if you keep raising your vibrations, you'll eventually surface again. And it's an ongoing process. But the denser you are, the harder it's even going to be. Because once the floodgates happen, it's just like, how dense are you? And so it's important. This is the whole point of Noah's Ark, is to get your boat ready. Your boat is the boat of the soul, Egyptian soul boat. We've heard about these things before. Get your boat ready, because the flood is coming. The flood is your emotions. The flood is your shadow self, because the waters above is not in there's not, either might realistically be water up there, but I'm going more with an allegory that's the unconscious becoming conscious. This is cosmic consciousness coming in. And if we aren't prepared for the reality of what is, we drown. So you must get yourself a boat, and it's the boat of your soul, and you must prepare for this, because it's important to not be stuck in a low density place, because you might drown and not be able to save yourself.